Hey there, I'm Toster on the behalf of Indie Structural Productions, and we are getting ready to set up the next guitar, which is the very first Icarus prototype model. The whole point of these videos that I'm currently putting out, the previous one was the Sparrow setup, maintenance, and inspection. Go and check that out, and then there will be this video, of course, and then a follow-up with the dataless prototype. And the whole point with all of these is that this, as well as the two others, will be going toward an auction. And all proceeds of that auction will go toward planting trees through istutapuita.fi and their carbon sink projects to better help combat climate change. What we're gonna do is we're going to go through this entire guitar, really look at, inspect it and get it up to spec, so that it's great and good to go for the auction for one of you, perhaps, to be the proud owner of some ipguitars history. Straight off the bat, let's start with, I love this guitar. I really, really do. It's a very quirky instrument considering what it is. And the way that it came about was we had the original idea, myself and Jay, for what the dataless prototype was going to be. And in Jay's terms, he lovingly named that the cheeky caster because it's made of quote-unquote cheeky parts. We'll go over that in the next video. It's not this video, but this video is about this, which is the twin to that guitar. Because while we were making that one, I did have the Icarus shape that was established with the Sparrow guitar, and I wanted to make a prototype version of that. So using the same sort of idea, same materials, the same materials as the dataless prototype, I went ahead and I created this. So it is a 25.5-inch scale length, super strat kind of shape guitar with a birch body. And there's two pieces of birch that weren't quite wide enough that we got, and we put a small strip in the middle there. Essentially, this birch and the other one were kind of discount, back of the shop kind of things that nobody was really using. And I got really lucky with the Icarus birch looking phenomenal. It looks great. The top of it is an oak top because the whole concept with these two was that while they are prototypes, I'm not going to start making them out of like foam or pine or something like that. The prototypes usually would be. I want to make the prototypes play. I want to make them good playable instruments and not just sort of to figure out shapes and sizes. We used an old tabletop from a coffee table to make the top for this guitar. And the neck itself is a multi-laminate mahogany neck, but the mahogany for it is actually skirting boards that we bought a few strips of, and leftover material from leftover rosewood from the, I believe, Wrath baritone fretboard. So mahogany and rosewood neck, and then I had to buy the wenge for the fretboard separately. Yeah, and a brass knot made from brass that I inherited from my grandfather. This is definitely a guitar that I use to learn a lot and kind of experiment on things that I would want to do moving forward. It is also this and the dataless. They are the first guitars that I have made with scooped headstocks, and I will show you a close-up of what that entailed. Because I hadn't done scooped headstocks before, of course, at work in England we had scooped headstocks, but those were done with the CNC, so I had never actually made them from scratch. So I did cut with the bandsaw a little bit deep and then filled it up. Nothing that hurts the structural integrity of the headstock itself, but just looks subpar. And I will go through, of course, in detail to show things about this guitar that don't really make it up to current quality standards that I have. I look forward to seeing what this guitar tails. It plays great though. Very out of tune, but it's been in a case for a good few years now. So let's take a closer look, a deep dive into this guitar. Something that also needs to change is something with this string tree, because currently it's way too low. So I'll try and fix that, because that just doesn't really function. Little bit of black stuff left over from a wall hanger. We're gonna clean that up, no problem. Do want to polish up the brass nut, but that's gonna be done along at the same time as the frets, because they do need some work. I don't believe the frets need a fret job. They actually look pretty good, but I do think that they just need some cleaning up. Of course, going to oil the fretboard, and here's a closer look at the brass tube and wenge inlays. So those were a lot of fun. Let's see. This is pretty funny. So I ran out of board, so that's pretty flat there. There is a little bit of stain that unfortunately seeped through right there, and it's end grain, so that's going to be hard to get rid of. Ever so slight inconsistencies with the neck carve, but nothing all that major. Not enough for me to really warrant refinishing this entire thing, because I would hate to kind of do that. It's just more, this is a period piece in a way for what IP Guitars was in the beginning. Birch backplate, the old handmade, hand-drawn shape, nowadays done with a template. Let's see what else. I'll see if I can get that in there a bit better. Currently, the browel jack sticks out ever so slightly, so I'll try and see if I can get that in there a little bit nicer. Yeah, I guess time to open this up and see what the controls, or, well, what the wiring looks like. There's not a lot of wiring in here, but let's just get that looking as good as possible. And we're met with aluminum foil, so I am going to paint shielding paint in here. Once again, going to be using the TLC Guitar Goods rear guard to do this. So I'm going to get that in there, make that look a little bit nicer. And yeah, in general, the wiring doesn't look too bad. There's not much of it, but yeah. And we got good, consistent color coding, black and white. However, what I am going to do is I am going to put some zip ties to kind of, you know, make this a little better so that there's not just loose wires like this. I'm going to make it look a little cleaner. So yeah, time to remove the aluminum tape and paint stuff. Shielding paint in, and everything kind of a little bit nicer tucked in there. Also got the jack now a little bit better from the side, so now it's not jutting out quite as it was before. So that's all well and good. I realized that one thing that we didn't do was actually listen to what this guitar sounds like currently, so let's just do that real quick. Of course, now we don't have any sort of comparison between what the guitar sounded like beforehand as compared to now, and we also do not have a knob, but I'll put that in place soon. Yeah, so I am just pretty confident that the electronics work on this guitar just fine. It's very loud, that's for sure. Right, that's good. It works, but I kind of assume as much. It's good to also get confirmation on that. All right, still, though, we're not gonna put the back cover on just yet. We're just gonna tighten up this pot right here. Make sure that that's nice and tightly in there. It is. But let's put in that knob, which came off quite easily. So once again, same old trick of just opening that up a little bit, crank it all the way to 10, and then push this in. There we go. So one thing that I didn't really bring up is that yes, it is a single humbucker guitar, single volume, and goes straight to the jack from there. Yet the control cavity is enormous. Now I wanted to keep it this way just in case if this were ever to be sold and the future owner would want to put in like anything else, split coils, other switches, tone, something like that, or even another humbucker, they could get that done. And I also always use barrel jacks just because they take up less area, less space, but because they're stereo, so in case this would turn into a guitar with an active pickup, it would still work. You wouldn't need to switch out to a different jack. So that's also something pretty cool. All right, I'm gonna remove the strings and then have a look at tightening up some bits in the headstock. I think the tuners, there's some bits that are a bit loose, but also want to fix that string tree. I have an idea for that, which we'll do with a threaded insert and a little M2 bolt. So let's have a look, or M2.5 bolt. So let's just tighten these up. I believe the nut was a little, or nuts on these were a little loose. So tightening them down so we won't have any rattling. Cool. Keep the washers nicely in place as well. Well, that one was a bit loose. All right, cool. And this one was really loose. There, that should stop all the rattling. Now, to tackle this, currently it's not really serving me too well having the string tree so low. So instead, I'm gonna put in a nice threaded insert and bolt, because those will definitely keep things in check. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna tap this in the same way that I do my direct mounted pickups. So press it into place with the burnisher and then tap it in. There we go. And now that ain't gonna go anywhere, and we can pop this in. That'll hopefully remain pretty solid. And yeah, me trying to pull it up doesn't work, so good. That is definitely much better, because what tends to happen with string trees quite a lot of the time is that, well, the screw will break and then you're kind of stuck with it. And me doing it this way now will kind of void that quite a bit. So that's the headstock, all well and good. I think the next step is to mask up the fretboard and do some fretwork. So time-lapse time. Of course, one of the things that we want to do before we get to fretwork is actually check that our neck is actually straight. Yeah, great. It has the perfect amount of relief in the middle here. That is the perfect amount of relief. So I'm really happy with that. But let's check to see if there's any fret leveling that needs to be done. There is crowning that needs to be done. Oh yeah, so this was a fret that had some issues and it was spot filed. So I will need to do some crowning. There's a little bit of a rock. So what we're gonna do is, I think, just ever so slightly touch up the fretwork on this, like we did with the Sparrow. All right, masking up. now with the frets polished up, well, fretwork done, frets polished up, and fretboard nicely oiled, it's time to actually slap on some new strings. So I'm gonna be, once again, using D'Addario and YXLs because I love these strings. They sound great and they last so much longer than any other strings I've used. So yeah, that's what we're gonna go with. And this is one of the reasons why I love top mounted strings, because I can just get those in there without a fuss. Like so. Oh, there you also saw a very nifty trick. I'm just gonna put this on, and then I'll go back and I'll redo that for you, so you'll see it a bit closer up. And yeah, a couple of winds, seeing as these aren't locking tuners, couple of winds, and press the string down. Yeah, there's still work to be done on the knot slots themselves, but I'll show you the trick here and how I do the winds on the headstock. Top mounted strings can be a little tricky in the sense that if I were to just try and poke this straight through, I would need to try and find it somehow to come out from the saddle there. So what I do is I put a little bend in it, just like that, and then I use that bend to help it come out from the saddle here. Makes my life oh so much easier. On the tuner side, we're gonna pull that string through. Yeah, definitely need to fix up the knot slots here, but a couple of winds like that. Push the winds down, poke the string through, nice and tight. And then let the new winds kind of push the old winds over on top, which locks this bit into place very nicely. And now, seeing as we're here, we can put in the string tree as well. Our new string tree thingy, just right here. It sits right there. I'm just gonna tighten that down to an appropriate angle now. Don't need it to be that high, so I believe that would be just fine. The previous one was basically floored onto the very bottom right here, and that indeed was not pleasant. Right, let me get all the rest of the strings on, and then we'll figure out the action and set up and everything else that has to go with. All right, so there we go. Immediately lying to you about what we're gonna do next. I do need to cut the nut slots, like I said. There is quite a lot to take down on a couple of these. For instance, the high E. So just using a knot slotting file here, just to kind of... Now, what I'm doing, actually you can only see that, can't you? Let me pull out a little bit. So, what I'm doing here to get optimum, first of all, I'm cutting the nut slots toward the tuners so that I get the intonation point at the very back of the nut. That's basics of doing this sort of thing. But what I'm also doing setup-wise is making sure that I have the same sort of tactile feel to pressing down a fret on the first fret, because you do need to press down a little bit harder. And to figure out how much you need to take down the knot slot, you fret the third fret and then try and see how much pressure you need to add in order to fret the first. I kind of need to do a lot on the first string here, the high E, and the B. G seems to be fairly okay. I'll take that down ever so slightly. D is fine. A is pretty good, and E needs ever so slight bit of work. So it is a fairly small adjustment, but I can assure you that it makes a big difference toward playability. That already feels tons better. And you'll get the more you do this, you'll kind of get a sense of, and a touch for it. But a sense of what you need to do, how much you need to take away. Sometimes the adjustment can be very minimal indeed, like that. That's great. All right. D, just enough to kind of clean the slot out and refine it ever so slightly. Because you don't want to do it too much either, because then you'll bottom out. That's great. All right. For the action, what I usually do is I'll have 1.5 mil from the top of the fret to the bottom of the string. This is the standard setup that I will give, because it's somewhere in between a very low action and a comfortable mid-ground for those who possibly don't like a super low action. But I've found this to be extremely comfortable to play. So as standard, this is the setup that I will give. You know, it works for about most of my clientele. Of course, usually if I'll do like maintenance work or something like that, I will, before I start doing anything at all, I will check what the action was before I take strings off, just so that I can adjust it, because perhaps the player has already adjusted it to their liking. So I don't want to go and change that. There, great. Then usually I do the pickup height by fretting the last fret and checking 2 millimeters from the pole pieces, which this has. That's action. So now we need to tune her up, because it's currently very much out of whack. And then we'll have a quick listen to make sure everything works, and then move on to Logic, where we can really plug this in and go through some different tones. Alrighty, so I also, off camera, unfortunately, but I also checked the intonation for this guitar, and didn't need almost any effort on that part, because, well, I've done the intonation on it already once. That was pretty good, pretty nice. Now, let's see what this guitar is like with a strap, because I'm not sure if I've ever played it with a strap. It's perfectly balanced. I mean, look at that. No neck dive, no nothing. Stays up pretty well. Let's... Great sustain from the brass nut there. Haven't touched any of the settings, and clearly this pickup has a lot more oomph. In general, gonna give this a good little wipe down. There's still a little bit of detritus left over from the frets, but even with the amp, it's pretty loud. All right, cool. So we're gonna plug this into Logic, run it through a few different tones to kind of hear what it actually sounds like. And I am going to check the weight of this, just because I know somebody's gonna ask anyway. 3.2 kilograms. So for my American friends there, that's 7 pounds. Yeah. No, wait, is that pounds? I believe that's pounds. So 3.2 kilo. That's, I mean, it's not the lightest guitar in the world, but it's also definitely not the heaviest. I do have a feeling that the daylist that we're going to be inspecting next is going to be a little bit heavier than this, but we'll see. I might be wrong about that. Anywho, closing off the back cavity because everything worked great. Gonna do an ever so slight amount of cleanup on this, film some close-ups, and yeah, we'll be right back to regular schedule programming. Alrighty, so let us check out what this guitar sounds like. Essentially, what I'm doing here, the signal chain is very simple. So it's the one singular humbucker going through the one singular volume, going to the jack, which goes into my Focusrite Scarlett, which goes into my DAW of choice, which is Logic. That goes straight into Neural DSP's Archetype Nolly plugins, which I absolutely love. We're going to start off with just the DI signal for this guitar. So it sounds like this. All right, and I guess a good place to start is with some clean tones. Now I say some clean tones because, well, usually I go through a bunch of different switching and different things that we're going to try out, but this doesn't really have that much. It just has a volume, so let's have a look. Tone that volume down a bit. All right, cool. But how about some chuggy chug riffs? So we're gonna go with Future Chug Machine. Okay, I need to definitely, that's clipping a little bit. It's got a good bit of sustain thanks to the brass nut, which usually adds to that. Also, the set neck construction does help too. Still going. All right, that was some really shoddy playing on my part, but that's not the point of this video now, is it? Wow. Right, so this thing is definitely a sort of riffy guitar. It's very, very much in the spirit of what Icarus is meant to be. The Icarus guitar is meant to be a sort of riff, workhorse, and shreddy sort of guitar, and now this, even the first prototype of it, definitely, definitely does exactly that. This guitar could be yours. There is an auction going live on November 25th, so that is Black Friday. Check out more details in the description right down there. And yeah, this guitar could be yours, and all the profits and all the proceeds that come from this guitar will be going toward planting trees through istutapuita.fi. The trees will be planted as a part of carbon sink projects that actually fight climate change. and every single tree counts. So please do tell all your friends and family, anybody who loves guitars, and anybody who's looking to get themselves a very unique, one-of-a-kind, hand-built guitar from Finland, because this thing surely is one of a kind and plays like a dream for what it's worth. I'm really proud of this, all things considered. I mean, as far as prototypes go, this one is a hell of a beast, and I'm happy to give it away to a very good new home. So if you want this guitar, do go check out that auction going live November 25th, and it will go on for 10 days, so you have plenty of time to jump along. And yeah, it's for a great cause. So the money will be going toward something very good. This guitar will come with a case, and it will come with a certificate of authenticity. And yeah, all the money going to an extremely good cause. So don't sleep on this opportunity to have a very unique hand-built guitar. And yeah, I hope to see you guys in the next video. Do go check out the previous videos that have come out, and all the usual stuff that YouTubers say, like, comment, subscribe, and bell icon and stuff like that. I'm not going to shove those down your throat as much in these videos, because that's not what it's about. The key focus here is to actually do something good for the planet that we live on. It's the only one we got, so we might as well take very good care of it. I'm going to stop here before I start coming off as preachy, and see you in the next video, which we will go over the first ever dataless. This was the first ever Icarus, but we'll go over the first ever dataless model ever to have been created. So yeah, see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and bye.